Before there was Drake or Nickelback or even Bryan Adams, there was Lighthouse, the five-man electrical band, and of course Steppenwolf. In their 10th book together, Randy Ray and Mark Kearney recall some of those trailblazers of Canadian music from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. The book is called As the Years Go By, Conversations with Canada's Folk, Pop, and Rock Pioneers. And Randy Ray joins us now with more on the trials and triumphs of some of his favorite bands. Good to have you here.
Glad to be here. It's
a pleasure. I am really looking forward to this conversation because these guys are, I mean, they're the soundtrack of our life if you're a certain age, aren't you?
Particularly my life.
Well, me too. I'm just a little younger than you, but these are still my guys too. Why'd you want to write this book?
Well, two reasons. Number one, I went to high school at Wexford Collegiate in Scarborough, and talk about the soundtrack of your life. It was the soundtrack of my life. Friday night dances, went to the mall, you know, saw Edward Bear, we saw the Ugly Ducklings, we saw Lighthouse and Mandela, on and on it goes. A band called These Things. So I went to that school, and it just got ingrained in my soul, Canadian music. We also did the church dances. I actually did the lights for a band in Toronto, Scarborough, called Windmill. So that was the start of it. I danced with my woman who would become my wife at Wexford Collegiate under the basketball nets in the gym. So it just became a real part of me, all that music. And to this day, when I hear songs by Edward Bear and Lighthouse, I remember where I was, just like some people remember where they were when Kennedy was shot or the 9/11. Same thing.
Has that same impact on you.
Exactly. And then it became more of a, so music was in my life, same with Mark. And then later on, we started writing the columns. We started writing about music when I was a reporter at Parliament Hill.
Randy, I'm interested in not only who's in the book, but who's not in the book. Because when you think of great Canadian artists, you know, Joni Mitchell's on that list, Neil Young's on that list, Gordon Lightfoot's on that list, and they don't show up much in these books. How come?
Well, the answer is quite simple. They've been written about by everybody else. So we wanted to dig a little deeper to the bands, you know, bring up unearthed bands that people remember and, you know, maybe have the records in the collection. But, you know, they didn't. The whole idea of this book is to take you back to, like I said, that high school dance you were at when maybe you had your first beer out behind on the track. So that was the idea here. And that's where we're trying to link the older crowd with those experiences and have them fire up some memories. So not that they didn't have memories of Bachman, Turner, and the rest of them, but they've been written about by everybody. Gotcha. A lot of these bands haven't been written about.
Well, let's go through them. Steppenwolf is a band's name that will be reminiscent to many people. Who are they?
Very true. So it's John Kay and Mars Bonfire. They actually started as the Sparrow in Oshawa, Ontario. The Sparrow. It became the Sparrows, Jack London and the Sparrows. Went on later on to move into Yorkville and become Steppenwolf. And of course, they had the song Born to be Wild and Magic Carpet Ride. Born to be Wild was Mars Bonfire. I think his real name was Jerry Edmonton, or maybe that's his brother. Was on a motorcycle ride across the desert, I believe, or somewhere in the U.S. Near Frisco. And thought, what a great, that's where he got the idea for the song. And apparently, as legend has it, he got in a fight somewhere there with another motorcycle guy and punched the guy out, stuffed him in a phone booth. So there are stories. And that song was, of course, in Easy Rider.
Easy Rider made that song legendary.
Born to be Wild.
Yeah, that was a fantastic one. And the guys in the band now, where are they now?
Well, they're all over the place. Some are probably not with us anymore, but John Kay, as last we heard, is still pushing a band, a version of Steppenwolf, still out on the road.
How old would he be now?
Oh, he's got to be, I don't want to insult the lad, he's got to be between 65 and 70. Rough guess.
Gotcha. The five-man electrical band. That's another one.
One of my favorites. Ottawa, Ontario. Les Emerson was the lead guy. They started out as the Staccatos and had a couple of hits, half past midnight. Anyway, they changed the name of the five-man electrical band and switched members over the years. So Signs is their big hit. Signs, great song. They were just about ready to break up in Ottawa, playing a game of softball. The song had been written. The band was driving somewhere out west or in the U.S., and he saw all these signs along the road. And you've all seen them, right? If you ever crossed the U.S. North, you know, wall drugs, 500 miles, 100, you know, too many signs. So he wrote this song. It became almost a teenage protest song about signs. Too many signs everywhere.
They were blocking up the scenery and breaking them.
Exactly. Yeah. And anyway, they were about to break up. And it got played, I believe it was in Detroit. It might have been CKLW. And went to, like, very high on the Billboard chart. Sent them to set up residence in the U.S., San Francisco, Los Angeles area. Many, many hits.
We should play a little snippet of this, because for those who don't know it by the name, you will know it if you hear it. Okay, Sheldon, roll it. Oh, that brings it back,
and
doesn't
still
it?
raking in royalties from that song, I can tell
imagine.
you. Yep.
What did the sign say? Sign said,
You got me.
you got to have a membership card to get inside.
And get a haircut and you got a
go.
job, yeah.
That one was famous. And these guys are doing what now?
Well, Les Emerson is still around playing. He had a band called Les Emerson the Hitmen. Brian Rading, the bass player, sadly passed away. Other guys are doing a little bit of production stuff. They're all over the map, and we can talk later about what everybody's doing. But
Sure. Let's talk about Denny Doherty, who's from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and just plain and simply ended up in one of the greatest bands of all time.
well, the Mamas and Papas, and I can tell you, Steve, that is my favorite interview I ever did. Talked to him on the phone, wind him up, let him go. He's now passed away.
He died 2007, I think. Yep.
He could drop names. I mean, stories he could tell about Mama Cass meeting John Lennon in L.A., fantastic. And at the time I had interviewed him, he'd been back in a new version of the Mamas and Papas with Mackenzie Phillips and
John's daughter.
Yeah, exactly. And preferred at that point to hide in Mississauga. That's where I talked to him. And the front of the cover of the picture of him playing with his kids, playing guitar with his kids.
Let's go back, though. How does a kid from Halifax, Nova Scotia end up in one of the greatest bands of all time?
Well, he just started singing real small. The Mugwumps and a bunch of really small bands. The Halifax 3 was probably before the Mugwumps. Eventually, the road takes him into Greenwich Village, I believe, where he meets people like John Sebastian, Zalyanovsky, and he was in a band with Zalyanovsky. And the group just came together there and, of course, had a rough start. And eventually they hit it just like everybody else with some other people with, California Dreamin'. And, and his voice, Monday, that's him. The beautiful voice, fantastic.
Now, you pointed out he did kind of drop out of sight for a long time. He moved to Mississauga and he just wanted to be away from it all. How come?
Well, he got into acting, so he was off the big stage, the Mamas and Papas big stage, but he was into acting. He was played a lead role or a secondary role in a play called Fire. I forget, it was about a preacher or something, and then did a little bit of theater stuff, and just, as most people in the book will say, at some point, you got to get out of the grind. But it's amazing how many people in the book said that and then are back out on the road now.
Randy, I want to ask you about Lucille Star, because I confess I don't know Lucille Star. Who was she?
Well, born in St. Boniface, Manitoba. I've got her album at home, as well as a lot of those five-man albums she just showed me. Woman of big hair, French. Wrote a song called, I forget the name.
That's not her real name. I think she was born Lucille Savoie.
Yeah, born in Manitoba.
Yeah.
The French song was her song, and it was a kind of a sad song. Her husband, she'd married a guy, and they started a band. I believe they're called the Canadian Sweethearts. The song was a very sad song. You'd know it if you heard it, I guarantee it. And then, like the song, her marriage failed. The last time I talked to her, I think she was in Nashville. And but in our book, if you buy the e-book, we come along, you're reading along, and you go, don't remember the song, French song, click here, and it takes you to a YouTube.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That'll fill in the blanks at that point.
Yes, exactly.
Justin Trudeau talked about sunny ways. Who talked about sunny days?
That would be Lighthouse.
Yes, sir.
That would be Lighthouse.
What do you want to tell us about them?
Well, Skip Prokop, the drummer, well, they were one of Canada's first orchestral rock bands. You know, they had the horns, the trombones, all that stuff, a huge band. They're on the cover as well. Howard Shore, a couple other guys whose name, Paul Hoffert, Skip Prokop.
Paul's like teaching at Ryerson. He's been around. He's doing a lot of great
Howard
stuff.
Shore went on to become music director for Saturday Night Live in its initial stages. I mean, a great band, many hits. Their lead singer, whose name right now escapes me, not Ralph Cole, the guy before him, had passed away, drugs and stuff, so he was one of the victims of the industry. But hit after hit after hit, and they, of course, played at Wexford Collegiate and most schools around Scarborough. So you knew them. I don't know how they found room for them on the stage. They were huge, but just one of the and they turned down the opportunity to play at Woodstock.
They didn't play Woodstock. Now,
play
why
Woodstock.
not?
Well, the legend has it that they heard there was drugs in the water there. Or maybe they just didn't like traffic jams.
There were a few of those down
yeah.
there. That Sunny Days is about as good a song as has ever been written in this country, eh?
Fabulous.
Yeah, that's a good one. Any of these artists that you chronicle in the book experiencing a kind of renaissance nowadays that you can tell?
It's a very good question. I actually was in London 6 months ago and saw the Stampeders play.
I remember that. I saw them at Hamilton Place
Sweet City Woman.
40 years ago.
And what's unique about them being back on the road, or that band being back on the road, it's all three of the original players. You don't get that too often. So if you read the book, we have people in there who went every which way. Some went into producing, like David Foster, of course, was in the band Skylark. The song Wildflower was huge. You know what happened to him. He went wild. He produced everybody.
Celine Dion.
Tears Are Not Enough sort of thing.
Yeah.
But we have everything from guys that were Dave Bingham of the Ugly Ducklings, good Toronto garage band, went on to become a carpenter, and now he's back. He's in Vegas or Mexico. So a lot of them, as much as they got out of the business because of the ups and downs of the bumpy road, are now back in it. So Steppenwolf's playing the Stampeders, Prism, a lot of them are out there doing it again.
Our generation clearly relates to this music. It's in our DNA, as we point out. It's the soundtrack of our childhood. What about today's younger generations? Do they know this music?
I think they do, because I listen in Ottawa to a station called Boom 97.
Oh, yeah.
Well, even while I'm writing this book sometimes. And they're still playing the stuff like Jerry Doucette, you may not know him. He's had a song called Mama Let Him Play. It's about let your son play the music. He wants to play. Don't tell him to turn it down. Let him play. Honeymoon Suite, which is a little beyond what we wrote about. They're all on the radio in the 70s, 80s, 90s stations. Plus, like the song Signs was redone by a band called Tesla, which most young people would remember. So I think they relate. I mean, my kids I have 3 kids. They're going back a little bit. They don't go back to the 50s and 60s stuff. But, you know, they love it. I mean, and the Guess Who's all over the radio still.
Indeed.
Randy Bachman, of course, you know.
Yeah. You know, my attitude always was, what's good is good. And if it was good 40 years ago, it's going to be good today. They're going to like it today.
I would agree.
Yeah. Are people surprised when, you know, let's say this generation, they find out these guys are actually Canadian? People surprised to find out these are Canadian groups?
Well, I think so. Like, for example, how many people know that the drummer for REO Speedwagon and Santana was from London, Ontario, one of their drummers? You know, a Canadian wrote the song I Will Serenade You for Three Dog Night. And we know a member of the Young Rascals, Gene Cornish from Ottawa, Denny Doherty, Halifax. I don't know whether they're surprised. I think at this point in life, we all know Canadians are great, have left a mark on the international stage. And I think when they hear that, they just go, good God, thank you, man. There's another great Canadian's made it and put us on the map musically.
You got a favorite?
Oh, I love the 5-Man Electric. You know, I live in Ottawa now, but, you know, bands that came to my high school, A Stitch in Time, the Ugly Ducklings, Lighthouse. I remember George Oliver coming on with a cape when he was with, I think he was either by himself or with the Mandela. Dominic Torano, I love them all. I've got a great record collection. And yeah, 5-Man would be one of my favorite bands for sure.
How did they get their name?
I think it's quite simple. They were more of a folksy band at the start as the Staccatos, and then they went a little bit more electrical, and there were 5 of them. 5-Man electrical band.
How about, I mean, that clearly makes sense. How about Steppenwolf? You know how they got their name?
I do not. Can't answer that one.
Okay. How about today? Is there somebody on the music scene today who is Canadian that you think has a chance for the same kind of immortality that these guys have?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, I'm not a huge listener to today's radio. I mean, a lot of these, well, I mean, look at Drake and some of these guys, they're already there, right? I'm an older guy, so you got me on that one. I don't listen a lot to stuff. As I said, I listen to the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s stuff. So, but you know, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. We've, you know, Celine Dion, Glass Tiger, all the people in my book, a lot of the people in the book, they've shown they can do it. So I have total confidence that somebody today will, or, well, they're already doing it, will continue that trend.
Now, you consider Glass Tiger a Canadian band?
No, they're from Kitchener, I believe, are they not?
Well, I mean, Alan Frew's kind of, that accent is not a Canadian accent.
Well, they hung out a lot, Canada.
Yes, they did. That is true. That is true. So do I gather, Randy, that I'm not going to be hearing you singing the tunes of The Weeknd anytime soon?
No. Some 5-Man stuff. But so anyway, the book, you know, if you want to talk about where we can get the book, it is self-published. That's been a grind. It's on our website at www.triviaguys.com and on Amazon, both as an ebook and as a hard copy.
Triviaguys.com.
Triviaguys.com. We've written, this is book number 10 for us.
Book number 10 for Mark Kearney and Randy Ray. Randy, with a name like that, you need your own radio show, buddy. I got to tell you. Randy Ray. Terrific. Nice to meet you, and thanks so much for coming in tonight.
Thanks a lot.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.